Hi, everyone, and welcome to my podcast, YouTube. I'm everywhere. Thank you very much. Today we have Karma, and that's actually his name, surprisingly, Karma Campbell. And there's a company called Karmesuticals, and you're selling all sorts of interesting products to make you feel better. Tell us all about it.
Yes, so I suppose the company Karmesuticals is just the latest iteration of one of the many paths that I've gone down. I suppose the key point that led me to this area that I'm in now is when I started a bachelor's in science in Western Herbal Medicine, and that took place at Westminster Uni. And I ended up studying there for about 6 years just because I had to repeat a couple of the years, but it was incredible. The main goal of this course is to lead me towards becoming a medical herbalist, and that would mean that I could start a practice and start taking my own patients, treating them with herbal medicines for everything really from anxiety to depression to neurological diseases to autoimmune and everything in between. The only things that are officially off the table for me are cancer, type 1 diabetes, STIs, and I can't give abortions. Other than that, it's a huge plethora.
Why are they off the table for you? What does that mean?
So legally, no one can treat cancer as a herbalist. We can assist their treatment, which would be chemotherapy or the likes of that, but we could never say we are treating their cancer, just because if somebody was to stop taking their medication and they died, that would then fall back onto our responsibility. And the number one rule being cause no harm. That's the opposite of that. So, which is why we didn't do that.
I'm not allowed to say cure, but I'm allowed to treat, but I'm not allowed to say the word cure. No one's ever allowed to say the word cure because that means it will never come back. Even if it is officially cured, even if you have cured people, if you use the word cure, you can get in a whole heap of problems because it implies it will never come back. And you can't guarantee it will never come back. There are people who've actually really got rid of these diseases for people and they haven't come back for years, and you can still get in heaps of trouble for it, no matter whether you've done it. I wouldn't ever make that claim, but the people who have made that claim and successfully done it have got in a lot of trouble.
There we go. No one needs any more trouble on their plate than they've already got today.
There's enough of that about. Yeah, so you're not allowed to treat them. I mean, they say, complementary, don't they, rather than alternative medicine.
Exactly, yeah, because it's meant to complement.
Confuses me, because what's the alternative? You know, like allopathic Western medicine is only 100 years old. Why is it that we're the alternative and this mainstream stuff, which is, you know, brand new really in the scheme of things? It seems to be the main thing. I know there's a whole history of all of that, but
exactly, yes, and I do tend to stay away from the word alternative and just go for complementary, because we're meant to complement the allopathic or pharmaceutical medicine and enhance it and work together instead of against each other. So I think complementary for me is one of the best definitions.
Oh, I just like saying magic.
Each to their own, I suppose.
Okay, so do you make bespoke treatments with herbs, or how does it all work?
Yes, so I have a dispensary at my fingertips, and when I take patients, I will go for a consultation, and that consists of going through the presenting complaint. Then we move on to some family history, drug history, and medical history. From that point, we have a little bit of diet and lifestyle inquiry, and from there, I will move on to assessing all of the body systems, so gastrointestinal, neuro, nephrological, and everything in between those. And once I've got a broad spectrum insight into somebody's health and the conditions that they're dealing with, from that point, I formulate a bespoke treatment, and that would be mainly in the form of a tincture, a mix of tinctures. I would probably also then give teas or something topical, so like a cream or a salve or anything like that to go with it, depending on how the individual case is presenting.
So are you doing homeopathy, or you're actually using the raw products?
No, so definitely not homeopathy. I am a medical herbalist, so we use whole plant extracts, usually at the strength between 1 to 1 and 1 to 5. And the ratio that is denoting is that there's 1 gram there's 1 gram of plant product per either 1 ml, which would be a 1-to-1, or 1 gram in every 5 ml would be a 1-to-5. So then that means that we get accurate levels of dosing throughout the treatment. And we are using whole plant extracts in those strengths of tinctures, which means that it's almost the opposite in terms of the medicine that we're giving to homeopathy.
What success have you had? What's your greatest success, or what's your happiest treatment?
Well, there's a lot of things that are quite easy to treat, such as like anxiety, insomnia, things like that. But then one of my favorite cases was with a young lady who had narcolepsy. And when I took her on...
Why don't we explain narcolepsy for those at home who might not know?
Yes, yeah. For those that don't know, narcolepsy is a sleeping disorder which manifests in various ways. This young lady had was having sleep attacks throughout the day. So she was having about 10 or 15 sleep attacks. And a sleep attack would be when you just suddenly lose consciousness. And
it's a very dangerous disease where people check out. They're literally, you're talking to them and then they are fast asleep and snoring. Within 2 seconds, they're out. Exactly. And often they're not able to drive. They're not able to, like, there's quite a lot of situations which is extremely dangerous to be narcoleptic. I remember I've had a friend who was narcoleptic, and it was so weird. You're in the middle of a conversation and then, like they're at dinner and they face plant in their dinner plate. Exactly. Like, it's a very destructive illness. We're making light of it, but it's a very serious and it's about, I mean, energetically or emotionally, there's an element of checking out that you just don't want to be somewhere, and so you sort of go out of body, but you go out of body to such an extreme that you're actually, your whole body just flops at the same time and you go into a deep sleep.
This is very true. Yes, definitely. And these sleep attacks can often be triggered by strong emotional responses, so like laughing really hard, getting really sad, or something else along those lines. So I suppose it would be quite difficult, especially if you're funny, hanging around with mates that have narcolepsy, because you just make them pass out all of the time.
That must have been the problem that I had. I've had 2 friends with narcolepsy.
That's what I was guessing, definitely.
And not that I'm boring, for sure. Definitely not that.
So this young lady was she was taking essentially amphetamines from the age of about 13, 14 onwards, and when I seen her, she was in her early 20s. So that was like over a decade of stimulant use, which is going to have like a huge impact on like your nervous system, your ability to interact, and she was just wasn't. And
you
really
have to keep upping doses, you know, because you get used to amphetamines or whatever, you know, Ritalin or whatever it is. You just get used to it, and then the dose goes up, and that's just very toxic for your body. Like, that's not a long-term solution. Nothing when you're upping the dose, like painkillers and things like that, is a long-term solution. It's just, you know, it's masking something without getting, I mean, that's what basically Western medicine's about. It's masking symptoms, not solving problems. That's my bug about it. It's great for emergency care. Like if you know, if you've gone and got run over or broken your leg or done some awful catastrophe accident sort of thing, then Western medicine's fantastic. For anything else, I'm not so keen, you know, because it's just masking symptoms, and unfortunately the symptoms want to be seen, so they want you to deal with them, so they just manifest in a different way, in a different way, in a different way, in a different way, until you bloody get the wax out of your ears, as far as I can tell.
Of course, yeah, I completely agree. And I suppose this treatment method is just an iteration of exactly what you were just saying. It's something that's just masking the symptoms, and then you also have to keep titrating the dose or upping the dose over time. And yes, so she was struggling to socialize, and like when she was going out, especially with family and people that would have more conservative viewpoints, then they would often assume that she was taking recreational drugs in this way, because she'd be so jittery and like would like just struggle to interact with everybody in like a calm and collected way that you do. Exactly.
And it makes people anxious. If you're around people who are on Ritalin or amphetamines or something like that, you can feel it in them, and it does project some sort of anxiety towards the other people, because they are a bit, you know, moving in a jarring way, which isn't fluid, and just sort of It's really odd being around those sorts of people, and it's quite uncomfortable. And it's like when you hang around someone with anxiety, you can feel that anxiety and it can make you anxious. So anyone who's on that sort of drug is going to affect those around them, and they won't be very comfortable around them, assumedly.
Definitely. And from a scientific lens, I suppose that would be potentially down to our mirror neurons, and where we learn that are developed, some of the earliest pathways in our brain that are developed as a child, because you're there to mimic those around you and you learn by mimicking. And I suppose then from a purely scientific perspective, that sort of feeding from the anxiety energy that's in the air could be seen as that.
Is there more to it though? Because there are contact highs. I know this is going off tangent, but there is such a thing as a contact high. So you can be around somebody who's on some sort of substance, whatever it might be, and it can make the person next to them also feel like they're on some substance. So I wonder if there's more to it than the neurons. What do you think?
It would be something that I'd have to look into, but I'm sure, as with anything that happens in the body, there's never just one thing that influences the way that it expresses itself. So yeah, I'm sure you're bang on the money there.
No, it's just like, for example, I mean, just one that people may be able to relate to is if you've decided that you're not drinking for a night and you're the designated driver, for example, you can definitely hang out with your friends and then feel like you've had the same shots of tequila that they've had or whatever it might be. You literally have a contact high from being around people who were slightly wobbly, as it were. And you can literally feel it. And I do wonder how that works. I mean, it's completely off topic, but it's just something that I wonder about.
Yeah, that is super interesting, really, because I've experienced this myself as well. So I do completely know what you're on about. And from one perspective, I suppose the majority of recreational substances that we take are just like either inhibiting, stimulating, or prolonging the release of certain neurotransmitters. And all of these neurotransmitters are in your brain already. So maybe there's some sort of knock-on effect from other people expressing the result of this neurotransmitter release that then is being fed on by you. But that is just theory.
Well, that's interesting. But the thing is, I think it relates across the board, because when you hang around somebody who's sad, it makes you sad. When you hang around someone who's happy, it makes you happy. If you hang around someone who's in love, it makes you feel in love. Like, I think there's an energy which people are radiating, which sucks you in. And then maybe you're producing it yourself or you're just mirroring it back. I don't know. Just think it's an interesting concept.
Interesting, yeah. So back to the lady.
Back to the topic.
Yeah, nice little segue via a little detour, but that was great. So back to the lady. When I started seeing her, she'd been on the medication for over a decade. The point at which I started treating her was mid to late lockdown. So she had actually taken the decision to come off of her medication, because the main reason that she was taking it was so she could function, and she wasn't just having these sleep attacks in classrooms and other social situations around that. So she weaned herself off of the amphetamines, but was still having all of these sleep attacks, and she was having the sleep attacks throughout the daytime, but at the nighttime she had insomnia. So there was a huge drain on her in the daytime, but then that was then sort of playing out into the nighttime, which would then transform into insomnia. So I
worst of everything.
Oh yeah, no, it was
and torture. No, not sleeping is torture. They use it as torture, like it is properly torturous. Yeah.
Definitely. So I started treating her. The main route of treatment was like nervine tonics. So helping to soothe and tone her nervous system and regulating the fire of the neurons. There was some other very specific treatments that I can't actually recall off the top of my head, but as with anyone, it's tailored to the individual. And over the course of about 6 to 10 weeks, we reduced her sleep attacks from 10 to 15 to about 6 at the most. And then on a good day, she would only have 1 or 2.
Okay,
fantastic. Great. So huge impact on her quality of life, which then, translated into her being able to function much better in her studies, in her work, and in her social life.
And the sleep?
Yes, so that was, I was leading on to that. So the sleep was massively improved as well, because yeah, like I was saying earlier, sleep is one of the more accessible treatments within herbal medicine. So I made great progress with that. So she was getting a full 6 hours at the very least every night. So
So
absolutely
how is, so
fantastic.
what's your treatment for insomnia? Is it generic or is it very tailored?
So yeah, so as with a lot of conditions, I will have maybe a personal favorite base mix, and that would consist of maybe 3, maybe 4 herbs, and then on top of that I will put in specific herbs to the individual. So I'll have my base mix for sleep and insomnia, and then I would look at specifics. So for her, she was struggling with staying asleep, so I gave her some herbs to help with sleep maintenance, and I'm trying to think if there was any others that I can recall. I should have had the case notes with me really, but unfortunately not.
Well, I know, but I ask random questions. You just never know what's going to come out of my mouth.
Of course, there we go. Keep things interesting at least.
I think so. That's an interesting case. Yeah. I mean, I've studied Chinese medicine, so I always find sleep really interesting. And in Chinese medicine, for those who don't know, you've got each of your major organs has a 2-hour processing time. So if you always wake up at a certain time, you always get tired at a certain time, according to the circadian rhythms, the corresponding organ is not working as well as it might be. So if it's functioning really, really sluggishly, then what happens is all this energy goes surge, and it surges to that particular organ. Then boom, you wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, which is your large intestine, or you get tired in the afternoon between 3 and 5 in the afternoon, which is your bladder. So if you always get tired at certain times of day, or always are like jittery, or always wake up at that time of day, it's indicative the corresponding organ isn't working as well as it might be. So, you know, and I always find that really interesting when people, they always say that they wake up to go to the loo in the middle of the night. And I always ask the question, you wake up because you need to pee, or you wake up and then go, oh, I might as well have a wee. And there's a very different, there's a big difference between waking up and being absolutely desperate to use the loo, and actually waking up and then, you know, like sort of needing the loo and going to the loo. And if it's at the same time every night, you have to look at the different organ, which might not be functioning very well. And then I improve the functioning of that specific organ, then people sleep through the night. So it's a totally different way around of doing
fascinating. Things. Yeah. And from the experience that we had at the university polyclinic, some of my favorite supervising practitioners were all multidisciplinary.
Yeah, I am.
And so like, yeah, one of them was trained in Western Herbal Medicine, but also Ayurvedic medicine. And you get such interesting perspectives. And when you can use these essentially completely different languages to come to the same conclusion, then you know that you're definitely doing something right. So
it's really reassuring when you can do that. You know, when I sort of pull some mad idea out of the cosmos, and then one of my practitioners and students suddenly goes, oh, that's in the Quran, or that's in Buddhism, or that's, and you're like, oh, I thought I sounded a bit loopy-loo, but okay.
No, definitely. These are all recurring patterns that happen throughout multiple societies, and it just shows that the intuition is really there. But
all the information was seeded by higher beings long ago and then spread around throughout the planet. That's the other way.
Yeah. So where was I? Oh yeah, so the treatment, learning in the polyclinic. So my supervising practitioner had a really good example where she would use ashwagandha quite a lot in the clinic. But then from a purely Western perspective, she would be getting quite temperamental results. So for certain patients, it would be doing wonders. And then for other patients, it wouldn't be doing anything at all. But then when she then trained in Ayurvedic medicine, she was able to apply the school of thought that surrounds the doshas. Doshas or
the kapha, the kapha, pitta, that stuff, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So I forget which one is the hot, fiery, slightly angry dosha.
Vata, pitta, kapha. Oh dear. Tell us in the comments below. I know we're mangling this.
Somebody will correct us in the comments.
Someone
I'm
will
sure.
correct us. We are mangling Ayurveda. I apologize.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I only have a rudimentary knowledge of it, but obviously not that
Exactly.
rudimentary even today. I haven't
So
studied
yeah,
it.
so yeah, taking these things into account, it just showed her that certain character types weren't suitable for ashwagandha, and then since she's applied that to her treatment, she's been getting like 80 or 90% success rate when using ashwagandha within the formula.
Amazing.
So yeah, I do really admire multidisciplinary practitioners, but
It
also
ties in.
like
It always ties in. It's so interesting when I do like, because as I said, I've done homeopathy. I've done a version of homeopathy called vibrational medicine. So I've got quite a lot of knowledge in that.
Yeah.
And then I've got some knowledge in Chinese. I've got knowledge in, well, basic stuff in Western. And then I've got a whole lot of magic. And then I just geek out. I'm just a massive geek about studying all these different modalities and different ways of doing things, because then you end up with a really solid formula to fix things. But actually a lot of the stuff where I am now, I'm so far down the rabbit hole, like there's no one that I can really research anymore, because I'm just doing this most wild stuff.
No, I've actually lost touch a very small amount with my research at the moment, just because launching the company in October officially has just led to a non-stop, relentless torrent of work. So I think I've managed to have about 2 days off so far this year, and we're just coming into June. So it's not exactly the most sustainable habit, but I'm really hoping that it's going to lead towards a place where I can just take a step back a little bit and actually dive back into the learning.
Good luck. There's always another bloody project, honestly. And then there's another deadline, and then there's something wild and wonderful. What's that behind you? I'm looking at that big thing. What's that? Like the glassy blocky.
Oh, the glass bit.
Yeah, it's like an hourglassy. What's that?
So this is my dripping machine. So it's actually for cold brew coffee, but I have been using it as a drip percolator for extracting various herbs, but also mainly just making flavored spirits, to be honest. So my favorites at the moment is like I've got a chai tequila that I make, which is just incredible flavor.
Chai tequila.
You wouldn't think it would necessarily go, but it is beautiful.
Chai tequila. I'm gonna like end up with a tea bag in my bloody tequila now, aren't I? I'm not sure that's going to work out very well for me.
It would definitely would. I'd say leave it for about at least 4 hours, 4 to 8 hours, and I'd say a few tea bags per bottle of tequila.
Well, I've got the Chai brothers, the Chai something Chai. I don't know. I've got loads of. I'm obsessed with chai. I've got like chai from everywhere. I've got Fortnum's and Harrods and the Chai brothers and Twining. I'm obsessed with chai. So I could just use some of the chai bits. I could easily do that. Just leave some.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I've gotten those little tea strainer things rather than like loose tea, and just stick that in some tequila.
Sustainable methods. I like
it. Fresh stuff. Cool. So what else? Tell me.
So what else? I think that so I covered the degree that I studied. That actually came to finish late 2022. And I suppose over the course of that, I've been living on like traveller sites in my caravan across like different parts of London, a little bit in East London, as well as like the outskirts of West London. So that was the majority of my time in studies, was living on these traveller sites. And the benefit of that was that essentially I wasn't paying rent, and getting the London loan meant that I could actually just funnel all of the excess that I wasn't wasting on rent into developing, nurturing, and just building the foundations of my company. So when I did finally finish 6 years later, which felt like a lifetime, but I'm really glad I pushed myself to get to the end, because there was definitely a few points at which I was close to giving up. It is a relentless amount of information to try and cram in your body, and for some reason they expected people to do that in 3 years, which I just think is crazy, to be honest.
Oh really? Is it more than most degrees?
Well, in for perspective, I suppose we've had over the course being over the running time of the course, there was several doctors that had done their MBS, and then joined the herbal medicine course afterwards, and all of them said it was much more difficult and much more intense than their doctor's degree. So I can't speak from experience, but from third parties, apparently it's more intense.
Oh God. So so people come to you so what's the most common complaint people come to visit you for?
Most common complaint would be anxiety, to be honest. I think.
And what do you do for anxiety?
Again, I'll come back to the nervine tonics. So some of my favorite anti-anxiety herbs would be American skullcap, so Scutellaria lateriflora, not to be confused with Chinese skullcap, which is Scutellaria bicalensis, and they both do quite different things. But the American skullcap is great for like soothing and toning that nervous system, relaxes the mind and the body. But one of the unique things about that is it actually stops overthinking. And I don't know about you, but I am a chronic overthinker, and I feel like the majority of the population is. So to be able to address something like that is actually a really good tool to have in the toolbox.
I'm not. I live in walking meditation, but
oh really? Oh, wow, lucky for some, I suppose.
It's the work. So for me, I come from a completely different perspective. So for me, I think that I come from a wizard background. I don't think that we're top of the food chain. I think that there are multidimensional beings who basically say all sorts of nonsense to us to make us get upset, and then they feed on the emotional energy, which is known as loosh.
Okay.
So that's what but they're higher on the food chain than we are, and they just literally say you're this, you're that, you're not a list of that, you're not enough of this, you're too little of that, you're too much of this, whatever it might be. They just say all sorts of horrible nonsense to us, and we get upset, and then that emotional those emotions are there.
Do you think that ties in possibly to the Buddhist school of thought around the different realms? So I think there's maybe 12 or 13 realms, but one of those realms is the realm of the hungry ghosts, and that consists of sort of like Dementor-esque characters, so big, tall, dark-faced, bellied beasts that just feed on the desire to consume. And this is tied into Gabor Mate, who's one of the leading specialists on addiction and trauma. But I'm assuming that they could also feed on things that they may be planting into your psyche, as well as
trauma. So trauma is the bullseye on you. So I like Gabor. Gabor is brilliant, but it's trauma. So when you've got traumas, it's bullseye on you, and then that's the place which they can go in there and twist the knife. So what I do is I either work on the specific trauma, and so the anxiety is not there anymore because there's nothing for them to feed on, or in a short measure, what I can do is put a force field around people's head between them and the entities, so their brain shuts up. Let's do it now, and everyone else can follow along at home. I'll do you, Karma, but anyone else who's watching this can also follow along and see the difference. Why not? Show you some magic. All right, so just close your eyes, everyone watching, including you, Karma, and I will put a force field between you and these beings who are saying nonsense to you and quieten everybody's minds. Okay. Okay, how's your brain? So give yourself a moment to notice. It should be a lot quieter in there, if not silent. So give yourself a moment to feel it.
Nice, not so much racket. We'll see if the inner critic comes back in full force later tonight.
Oh, it will do. I'm only putting a force field on. It'll probably last a day.
Okay.
But it just shows you. It shows you the difference, the before and the after, because in a few seconds, your brain shuts the hell up. So noticing the before and the after just proves that it is these ruddy entities.
Nice. Okay, well, I'll take note this evening when I'm going to bed, because that seems to be especially when the overthinking comes in for me.
Is it quieter now than it normally is?
I think that maybe I'm mildly in a bit of a sort of flow state at the moment. So just letting my subconscious take over, and I wasn't actually noticing huge amounts of chatter in the background.
Okay, well, let us know. And everyone at home, let me know whether that's helped you, because it's only temporary, but it just proves the point that there is a whole force field thing, or that, you know, between you and the entities. Yeah, that it's them. Okay, so anxiety is the most one, the most common one that you treat. Is that your favorite one? You like the narcolepsy, or is there anything else which you're particularly into?
I think that probably one of my favorites is gut health as an all-encompassing topic, but specifically I really enjoy assessing and treating various autoimmune diseases, because the immune system is massively rooted in the gut, and dysregulation of that, be it too strong or not strong enough, can all be influenced through the gut. And there was, so one of the governing bodies of herbs is called CPP, and that's the College of Practitioners of Phytotherapy. And the founding member of that came up with the rudimentary version of this, but it's developed into the weed, seed, and feed protocol. So essentially you weed out bad bacteria, feed with good bacteria, seed with good bacteria, and you feed with prebiotics. Yeah, prebiotics. And through this, you're essentially remodeling the landscape of the gut microbiome, and through that, you can definitely reduce the symptoms, control, or even eradicate a lot of autoimmune diseases.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing, because there's so many people have autoimmune issues, and they are so debilitating.
Exactly, yeah. And yeah, anything that brings a huge impact to quality of life is just a great thing to witness, especially if you've maybe had a small amount of influence on reducing those negative impacts.
Or a big amount of influence.
Trying to be modest.
I don't know. I'm not that pro modesty. I think people should own what they've done. And, you know, and really, and you know, you can be proud of something without being conceited or being difficult or being a dick about it. You can just be like owning it and just be like, yeah, I did that. But without being like, I'm better than you because I've done it. But you can be excited about it and be sharing your wisdom and knowledge, but from an excited perspective, as opposed to looking down your nose at other people who don't have the skill set.
That is so true. Yeah, I think maybe that's where I need to work, because I think my ego just gets a little bit carried away with itself, and it's like, you're the best, Karma. And I'm like, no, I'm not the best, I'm all right. And then like, no, you are the best. And then there's this constant battle.
No, I think it's false.
In between points.
No, I think we've been lied to and told to keep ourselves bloody small. I think we should be celebrating one another. But the thing is, you can be the best at this. You are, you know, I don't know much about your specialist subject. You're better than me at it. And we should celebrate that you're bloody legend at, you know, will work, and I'm a bloody legend at magic, like, and that's cool. We can both be legends. It doesn't mean you're better at that and I'm better at this, and we can celebrate each other and still communicate without being dicks to each other, and just be enjoying the wisdom and the knowledge and sharing that with one another. I think we've been duped. Seriously.
Oh, definitely, yeah. No, I think you're right. But then you highlight something quite important there, which is like, I think it's maybe more important for other people to say that you're the best rather than yourself. Because if you're the only person saying you're the best and nobody else agrees with you, it's nice that you think you're the best, but obviously the general consensus
don't be delusional.
Yeah, exactly. And
yes, and the thing is, there is an element of fake it till you make it. There is an element. You know what? I was listening to Tony Robbins. There's a new book that he's got about longevity, and I listened to an audiobook, and there's a lady there who's she developed satellite radio, and she's developed these different she used to be a man, I can't remember her name. She's basically developed all of these incredible technologies, and her belief system is like it will just work. Like there is no doubt in her mind that, you know, that's what's going to happen. Like, you know, that's just when you like real winners, it's a billionaire mindset. I write about it in my book. There is no chance of failure. Failure is not an option. It doesn't exist. It doesn't freaking exist. So like, it doesn't make any sense. Like I can't compute like, you know, my plan is to instantly dissolve all diseases, and not getting there doesn't compute. I don't understand why I can't do it. I come from a perspective of I don't know why I can't already do that. Not like it's difficult to get to. It's just like, well, obviously that's going to be happening. It doesn't end, doubt doesn't enter my mind because it just doesn't even make any sense. There's no resonance of doubt. So if you actually wholeheartedly believe that you can do something, more than be something potentially, like you can actually achieve such and such, and keep your singular focus, the universe will align to make it so. You know, that you can heal people as opposed to being, you know, I am the best, like I can do this. It's a different way around slightly.
Like I can already do it, I just haven't learned how to do it yet, sort of thing. And that is, like I was saying, that is brilliant that you have that like mindset, and that you're able to come at the things that you do with that sort of energy. But how would you go about trying to instill that sense of belief in somebody else? Because like I find
I suck out the doubt.
Okay. You suck out the doubt, and this is through energetics or conversation or
magic. I delete the doubt from their consciousness. I literally delete the doubt from their consciousness, and then it's not there anymore. So it's not that they're having to battle anything to not find the doubt. It just doesn't exist within their consciousness, and they try to find it. Doesn't enter their minds. It just doesn't exist. I delete it.
Yeah, there we go. Well, that's a nice little shortcut, definitely.
Very useful. Yeah, no, I've got a lot of magic up my sleeves, and it's like I just forget how many different, because I've got 11 levels. I'm writing level 12 at the moment, and I forget how many things I've got, because then someone just goes, oh, what about, I've got this problem, and I could do this and this. I've got all these different treatments for things. I can do, you know, so many crazy wild things. I just have to remember what I can do. No, definitely. And I suppose I feel like that on a similar level with the practice that I have around herbal medicine. It's like, even if I come across a disease that I've never experienced before, I know the principles of health and like physiology and pathophysiology and how the herbs influence those. So even if I don't know how the disease works, and I just understand like the body systems that it's affecting, and like maybe some of the very like basic principles around it, then I can come at it with the foundation of knowledge that I've built around herbs and health. And yeah, it's not that, I can treat everything. I just haven't learned how to treat everything yet. There you go. Boom. Okay, so have you got anything coming up, and how do people get hold of you, please, Karma?
So coming up, we have a big festival season ahead of us. So most likely, if you want to see us in person, we'll be in the field at one of the following. I think first up, we've got Meadows in the Mountain in Bulgaria. Then we're moving swiftly on to Glastonbury. We'll be in the Fairground. From there, we have Noisily. We have fingers crossed Shambhala, working with the Bristol Fungarium, which I'm sure you know. As
yes, I know Elle. She's a lovely little monkey.
Oh, she is fantastic. Yeah. We'll also be doing Boomtown, Secret Garden Party, Medicine Festival, High Rise Festival, and probably a few that have just slipped my mind momentarily.
Holy smoke. So when you say we, who's we?
So me and my multiple personalities mainly. No, the crew that helps me. So I have like lots of volunteers, but I have some people that do help me like in a big way. So one of the people who's semi that's like fairly involved in the business is Diliana. She's helps with events and logistics, so she's great in terms of communicating with the events that we're doing and helping to orchestrate how we're going to get there and operate these things. We also have Pete McKenzie, who is part of the flavour team, I suppose, which is just me and him. So he's great at managing some of the bars that we run, as well as helping me to put the flavors into words around the products that I am making, as well as create new drinks and look at making new formulas for products in the future.
So what products, so I know you may have this bespoke service. So what are you actually selling? I'm sure you're not doing treatments at these sessions, or are you doing treatments? Or are you
No,
selling?
not quite yet. That would be nice to have a whole dispensary at my fingertips, but no. So Karmesuticals actually makes products that are utilized in recreational settings. So they're the same herbs that I use in my clinic, but I've just formulated these because it was really quickly on into the experience in the polyclinic at university that I realized that the majority of these herbs that I'm giving for people's health conditions could also be used for social occasions in various ways, because I've seen that alcohol is a bit of a another echo of the pharmaceutical industry, which is just putting a plaster on the symptom and not actually addressing anything at its root. So if you're anxious, you will drink, even though the next day you're probably going to have anxiety, which will just make it 100 times worse.
Because your aura gets weaker and these bloody beings get in. It's yeah, it's spirit. What, there's a name, there's a reason why it's called spirits.
Yeah.
And alcohol is actually a demon. It's the name of a demon in Islam.
Yeah, no, I was aware of that. And yeah, so that's interesting you say that, because so the formulas I have at the moment, we've got 4 of them. They're tailored to various different points of your social experience or even working day. They were originally extracted in alcohol, so they're made as tinctures, which is usually either a 6-week maceration or, like my machine behind me, drip percolation. And then once we've formulated these herbs together to make the mix, we've actually got a process where we freeze dry all of the alcohol out of it and just reconstitute the volume with vegetable glycerin. And vegetable glycerin is the solvent that we often use when we're not using alcohol to extract the chemicals that are there in herbal medicines into a liquid, so that it's much easier to pass the barrier of your gut into your body. And yes, so the benefit of doing it that way instead of instead of initially using vegetable glycerin is that you get a very high strength extract. So when you're using drip percolations, like a larger version of the machine behind me, it's much easier to get to a 1-to-1 ratio aspect. 1-to-1 aspect ratio. So there would be a gram for every milliliter of solvent. When you're using vegetable glycerin initially, the max strength you're going to get is a 1 in 5, and that means that you end up having to take quite large volumes of these. A lot
more product, yeah.
And part of the point of my products is that they come in little drop bottles, and you can put it in your pocket, take it out to parties and social occasions, so that even if you're just going down the pub and you're not drinking, it means that you have an accessible solution to feeling better but not having to consume alcohol.
So you have 4 products. Tell me about the 4 products that you've got.
So the 4 products, we have number 4, which is social fluency, and that is the most similar in action to alcohol. So this actually binds to the same receptors in your brain that alcohol does, and they're known as GABA. Well done, top marks for you. And for an extra point, do you know which GABA receptors it binds to?
No.
So GABA A. But I only learned this.
I know about Sentia. I've interviewed the guys from Sentia. Do you know Sentia?
I do, yes. Who did you interview?
What?
Who did you interview?
Oh God, my mind's gone completely blank as soon as you asked me that. Chris, okay.
No, I don't know him. Dr. Nutt he's the sort of celebrity face of
I know, I need to talk to him at some point as well. Yeah, no, I like the Sentia people. So I put them in my book actually.
Oh, nice. Fantastic. So
GABA receptors. So it's alcohol. It's like alcohol in a tincture bottle. Have a few drops, makes you feel like you're a little bit more at ease, basically.
Exactly that. Yes. So that easing of the mind and body that you feel when you have that drink at the end of the day after a long, hard day's work. That's essentially what you're feeling. It's relaxing the mind and body, but also just lubricating your social experience, because I find going into new environments with new people, it can often be a bit sort of friction. There can be friction in the air, but with this, it really just eradicates that. One of the unique things that sets us apart from Sentia is the addition of the skull cap that I was talking about earlier. So stopping overthinking, I think, is a huge benefit to people's social experience. And one of the other things that I learned, as well as it being GABA A receptors that we bind to, I learned this at the Breaking Convention, which was a few weeks ago in Exeter, and that was Europe's largest psychedelics conference, and there was some amazing people there. It was just one of the most incredible experiences. So the second thing that I learned was anti-anxiety herbs actually reduce heart rate variability. So that's the difference between the slowest and the fastest rate of your heartbeat. And if you have a huge variability, that's one of the best sort of markers towards how bad your anxiety or PTSD or something like that is. And when I was speaking to somebody at Breaking Convention, they actually put the stories that I was telling them about the fact that when I'm making drinks for maybe my friends, and they just ask me to make some drinks for everybody, and I don't even ask them what they want, I'll just put some of the social fluency in it. And even though it's a relaxing herb, everybody livens up in a massive way, which is really interesting, because when you ask anybody what they want or how are you feeling and how do you want to feel, the majority of people will just say, I want more energy.
Yeah.
And it's contradictory to think that by giving them relaxing herbs, it will actually give them more energy. And this is where it links
less
into
spaces, more bandwidth, because the anxiety is quashed.
Exactly that, yeah, because it takes a huge amounts of energy to be anxious, and then reducing heart rate variability through these anti-anxiety herbs frees up all of that energy and actually just makes everyone really lively. So so that's one of them. 4,
so you've got one which fluency. Is one so one of them is the alcohol-free alcohol tincture. What's the second one then?
Exactly, yeah. So next we have number 3, which is all night long. Like the song, not the keeping you up at night. Exactly, thank you, because I don't want to butcher that.
I'm going to see Lionel in a couple of weeks, actually. I love Lionel. Go on.
Are you? Oh, that's fun. That's exciting.
I've seen Lionel loads of times. I know the band. Anyway, moving on.
So this mix is a relaxing and stimulating aphrodisiac mix. So this will give you more energy and stamina. But interestingly enough, we've been getting loads of reports back, mainly from women, which is fascinating, is that it's massively increasing the quality of their orgasms. So who doesn't love that, really?
Does it make men stronger?
From the research, from the clinical research, it does increase both fertility as well as erection strength. So there is aspects for both men and women. It just seems to be that women are the ones that notice the difference with their climaxes.
Men don't notice as much. I've noticed that with energy work when you're working on men. Women are more in tune with themselves. So men don't tend to, I think men are, I don't know, they just don't tend to notice things which are quite subtle as well as women do. I mean, in pretty much every way, like, you know, husbands rarely notice when you've had your hair done, whereas your girlfriend will be like, oh, your hair done. You know what I mean? They're just like, they're working on a broader basis, and women are more sort of noticing things in a more specific way, I think, is a massive generalization, but probably
definitely no, but generalizations are there because there are patterns amongst people. So I do completely agree.
What's number 2?
So number 2 is probably my favorite, is Turbo Tonic, and this is being touted as herbal medicine's answer to cocaine, because it's a spicy alternative that gets you absolutely buzzing. So it's great for staying up all night at the party, or even just like if I've had way too many late nights in a row and I still need to function on all cylinders, then I will just go straight for the Turbo Tonic.
I feel like I need all of these. Go on, what's number 1?
And number 1 is another winner, and that's Sharp Wits, and this is a mix of cognitive enhancers and stimulating adaptogens. So cognitive enhancers increase blood flow to the brain, and this will make you much more sharpened on it, and definitely making the best jokes in the party. The byproduct of that is basically better memory, learning, and focus. So great for anybody that suffers with ADHD type symptoms, that struggles to socialize. And then the adaptogens, of course, help you and your body adapt to mental, physical, and chemical stress much more quickly. And as I suppose we could just dive into adaptogens a little bit because they do appear in several of my products. So adaptogens often get confused in that they suppress the stress response. And actually, they don't suppress the stress response. They actually just help you to return back to baseline level of homeostasis more quickly. So when we have a stress response, we go into the neurotransmitters will then go down to adrenal glands by some hormones in the brain, and that will release cortisol and other stress hormones. So every time that happens, you have a little spike of cortisol, and then your body will metabolize that back down to baseline function. So every time you have a stress response, it's going to take you a little bit longer to return to that baseline level of hormones. And when people are in such a chronic state of stress, they actually never return back to that level. Right. And adaptogens just help you to bring that down. So this adaptogen is Korean ginseng, and that's unique amongst the adaptogens because it actually stimulates you. Unlike most stimulants that act on the brain, this one acts on your mitochondria. So the way that it works,
battery packs of cells, mitochondria for everybody.
Powerhouse of the cell, yes, everybody loves a little bit of GCSE science recall, don't they?
I was listening to it yesterday. I was listening to a talk by Huberman, Dr. Huberman. Do you know him?
Oh, yeah.
He was talking about cold water therapy.
Ah, yes, nice.
So they're talking about mitochondria. I know about mitochondria anyway. I have to look at them. Yeah, I'm working with mitochondria myself. So yeah, interesting.
Oh yeah, definitely. They're one of my favorites. And like actually, from what I've been reading recently, a much better. So your mitochondrial health is a much better indicator of your age than chronological. And
that's
other
interesting.
out there. So yeah,
and it's to do with adipose fat. Yeah, it stimulates. So brown fat, the more brown fat you have, the more active your mitochondria is. So cold water swimming, as I was listening to yesterday about immersion, actually gets your brown fat working better. And so it actually probably helps you reverse age. I was talking to Laura Hoff about this the other day, because she's saying that she's like reverse aging from doing the cold water therapy. So that's
that's fantastic. Yeah. And it's really nice, actually. It's refreshing, excuse the pun, to see that some people are actually giving spotlight away from just the neuro functions and the fat functions of this cold water experience. So yeah, no, that's really interesting. I didn't know about the mitochondrial aspect.
Yeah, it's an interesting. There's as I said, I think it's the Huberman experience. It's very good. It's a very interesting podcast. But yeah, I like it.
So Korean ginseng actually acts on the mitochondria to both upregulate the production of ATP, which is the chemical that mitochondria produce, that are used in every single energy function in the whole body. But it also reduces the oxidative stress that's caused from ATP production. So it acts on two levels to both increase your energy, but decrease the oxidative stress. And it's a really fascinating experience, to be honest, because most people are very familiar with stimulants, so central nervous system stimulants that act on your brain and spinal cord, but not many people have experienced something that acts on your mitochondria. And because of that, I find a lot of people, when I ask them about it after taking it, they're like, oh no, I didn't feel any energy increase, no, none at all. But then before I've asked them, I've just been observing them, and they're so full of energy. They're like chatting people's ears off, like running around, doing loads of stuff in a high energy way. But because it's not in that sort of
jittery,
even mildly jittery or tense way that central nervous system stimulants act, then they just didn't pick up on it.
Bandwidth. So, I call this bandwidth, which is I'm working on this stuff. I'm doing some reverse aging work and very interesting cellular regeneration work I'm doing at the moment. And one of the major things people are experiencing, and I am myself, is an increase in bandwidth, which means the energy to do multiple tasks in a day. To be able to flip tasks without it completely frazzling your brain, just having the space and the energy to do multiple things, which I think is mitochondrial.
Okay, yeah, no, that does make sense, definitely.
Yeah. So how does everyone get a variety pack, or how does it all work, and how much does everything cost?
You can either catch us at the festivals and we'll be there with our bottles, or you can look online at www.karma-suticals and that's a hard one to spell. So that's ceuticals.co.uk. And yeah, we have the website. There's a nice little discount if you decide to get all four. I suppose one aspect that I haven't talked about in terms of these products is that they've been formulated for flavor as well as function. So they taste really nice by themselves, but you can actually mix them into drinks, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic cocktails. So we have lots of inspiration on my Instagram, which I suppose if I'm plugging things is Karma_Suticals.
I'm going to leave everything below. So you'll just
great.
send me all the links and I'll put it in the description below. Yeah.
Like and follow, guys.
Like and follow, like and follow. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I want the whole range now. You've sold me.
Oh, no.
How much is it? How much they all cost? How does it all work?
So they're £20 each, but you get a discount of £5 off each bottle if you get all four. So all four for £60. So not extortionate by any means.
How many doses
like
is in a bottle?
So there are 6 to 12. So there's 6 large doses and 12 small doses. So I recommend a large dose is 5 mils and a small dose is 2.5 mil. And when I'm taking it personally, when I go out and about to parties and stuff, I often start off with a 5 mil dose, and then every so often throughout the evening, I'll check in with myself and see if I actually need another dose or if I've just got into this blind level of consumption. And if I actually do, then I'll go for another 2.5 mil just to keep myself topped up at that
level of consumption.
Exactly,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's cheaper than, so you could, so if you had, say, the alcohol sort of alternative one on a night, a 20 quid bottle would do for the night easily.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I mean, imagine how much if you're going to actually go to the pub or something, you're probably going to at least spend 20 quid. It's quite easy to spend 20 quid when you're out and about.
Definitely, yeah. And I find that in general, they will last people at the very least the weekend per bottle, if you're just consuming one, if not several weekends, depending on how hard people like to go. And
I want to try them all. They sound fun.
Well, I should send you some, really, shouldn't I?
You should send me some, indeed. Yeah, I think it'll be worth trying them, and then we can report back. I can be
that would be massively appreciated. So they go in cocktails, and like I don't think I did mention this at the beginning, but I've actually been now running cocktail bars at festivals for about 10 years. So the experience behind that has led me to formulate these in terms of. Do you
speak to the do you know Anthony from Rise and Shine? Do you know Rise and Shine?
Rise and Shine, is this a festival or a
party? When we come off camera, I'll talk to you about him in a second when we finish. There's a connection that I should make for you. He does a lot of parties and he'd be very interested in your products. I think it's a really good collab.
Fantastic. Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
I think you'll work really well together. I'll do it off camera so no one else has to listen to my business ideas. Everybody.
Great.
Okay, cool.
So running the cocktail bars, I suppose I'll give you a little rundown of how that went. Is like I was running the cocktail bars into the start of my university practice, and it was the fact that we were prescribing with tinctures that led me to start using these for recreational mixes, because tinctures are just alcohol extracts of herbs and cocktails are just a mixtures of alcohol. So it just made absolute obvious sense to me to mix these two practices together. And I started doing that over the years of studying whilst I was running cocktail bars in the summer. But then in 2019, I got invited to do an alcohol-free cocktail bar at Meadows in the Mountain.
Nice.
And personally, I was just a bit confused as to why I was being asked to do that. But that's just because I was looking at it from my own lens of that I like alcohol in moderation sometimes. And I don't understand why somebody would want something that's not alcohol in their drink. So then I went to Meadows in Bulgaria, ran the cocktail bar, and to my absolute delight, everybody was loving it. And people would come, they'd see the fact that it said 0% next to the spirit, and then 30 seconds later, after explaining the benefit of all the herbs and how that would interact with their with their time on the mountain, they were all sold. And not only were they buying drinks and then coming back for the rest of the weekend, but they were actually going around the festival and hyping me like essentially like I paid them to be my brand ambassador. So it was just a really, really eye-opening experience.
That's nice.
So then from there, I started doing more and more alcohol-free cocktail bars as well as the standard alcohol ones. And yeah, I developed these products around those practices, and this is where we're at now. So one thing that I suppose I would quite like to talk about is the general population's attitude towards consumption of recreational substances, because I do find that there's like a very polar split amongst communities. So like those that are in the sober bracket, and I say that because I think it's a bit of a spectrum that we could probably talk about for hours, but those that consider themselves sober are very closed off on some levels, because they are a smaller community and they are a minority amongst the crowd, that I feel like I do understand why they stick together, but there seems to be this quite solid cutoff of like, you're not a sober person, you're not one of us, and you're not necessarily welcome. I understand if it's like a
bit cliquey, I don't really know. Bit cliquey.
Yeah, exactly that. It's a bit cliquey. And then I suppose even from the opposite end of the spectrum, when you're this not sober person who enjoys recreational substances, then like if you're down the pub and your mate says, "Oh, I'm not drinking," then quite often people are like, "Oh," and they take it personally, and they're like, "Oh, they're not drinking, so they don't want me to drink," and that was never even suggested. It's just, I suppose, on some level, they know that what they're doing isn't necessarily that sustainable, so then they're projecting the uncomfortable feelings they have towards their own practice onto that individual who's actually taking action on it. So a large part of,
or they just want to have the friends with fun with their mates.
yeah,
That's the other side of it as well.
But like, yeah, if
it depends where it's coming
if your
from.
mate is still fun and they're sober, then that's completely fine, surely.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I suppose if they are boring without it, but I don't think it's that simple, to be honest. People that say, "Oh, I'm boring without substances."
I think people do have issues, to be able to relax.
Yeah, and I suppose that goes into deeper issues than just not being fun, which is this sort of like,
yeah, no, I had a friend of mine who was quite repressed when he was sober. He was quite repressed and quiet, and as soon as he had a couple of drinks, he was called Mad Dog, and he was a complete hooligan. He like almost Jekyll and Hyde, which I found really interesting. Like he was literally jumping on tables and grabbing a microphone and like just being really, really bouncy and a bit jarringly. And then the rest of the time he was very mousy and quiet, which I found really odd. So some people, they do have a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde with alcohol, which is probably another thing.
Yes, no, definitely. And that I think is down to prefrontal cortex shutdown, which is associated with alcohol, but not with my product. So I suppose, one of the bigger differences between social fluency and alcohol, two of the bigger differences, one of which is the fact that it won't do the same sort of thing to your friends. So it won't make you do these things that are potentially considered crazy, and you're going to wake up the next day going like, "Oh, why did I do that thing? Oh, it's so embarrassing." And then the other benefit to the social fluency over alcohol is that it actually doesn't affect your motor skills. So you won't be slurring your words and you won't be stumbling all over the place. And then back to the communities. I think this is where I'd really like to make some impact with Karmesuticals, is to try and bring a bit of unity and try to explain that things don't necessarily have to be so black and white, sober or not sober, because depending on how you look at it, coffee, cigarettes, all these things that are so socially accepted, even amongst like circles, like for instance, Alcoholics Anonymous, I'd say the majority of those people are chain smoking in between each meeting. So
right. I mean, and also a lot of things are stimulants. That sugar's a stimulant,
exactly,
and a lot of people are hooked on sugar.
As well, theobroma in cacao as well. These are all stimulants. So like eating chocolate is something that not most people wouldn't consider taking a drug, but
and then a lot of people are quite happy to pop a paracetamol or whatever. They are all changing your state in some way.
And I think from speaking to people within these communities, especially within the AA, one of their rules is that it's not allowed to be taken unless it's prescribed by a medical professional, which is like, I can see where they're coming from with that line of thought, but nobody's been prescribed cigarettes. And if they're all smoking cigarettes, then why are you drawing such a black and white picture around
I mean,
sobriety.
but a Nurofen, which is obviously blocking pain, something like that, or that wouldn't necessarily be prescribed if people have got a headache or
sure,
something.
yeah, no, that's completely right. Yeah, I didn't even think of that aspect. So yeah, so there is no all-encompassing framework that defines sobriety and how you should act towards it. And although I do think that AA definitely has its place because it's one of the most successful treatment programs for addiction out there.
But I think
comes
the
back to more
community
like,
is huge in AA.
exactly,
And
taking the words out of my mouth.
yeah, it's the community largely, it's the accountability largely. I think that really, really does help people. And it's also, when you know that you've been sober 10 days, 10 years, or whatever it is, it's like you're taking one day at a time, but you just don't want to lose your badge, and then go, and then you've also got the support network if you are in a position where you are thinking of taking a drink. Then you
no, definitely, and I suppose that's where you could potentially see a benefit within the merging of these communities is the sober and the non-sober communities. If you could unite those people, then there would be a whole spectrum of support, stories, experience that you could draw on. Whereas like it sort of takes somebody going into this, right, I'm never doing anything again sort of mentality to actually start associating with the sober community. And this is where I think Karmesuticals could do something that's really special in that.
It should, ideally, not that I'm telling anyone who's an addict to do anything again, but I think for me, the ultimate state would be for you to be able to not care about it. So it's not, you're not attached to it. I think, honestly, I think it's these multidimensional beings and everything else as well, which are like then in your ear, because as soon as people say as soon as they have one drink, then they need 20 or whatever it might be, because they've got this little voice in their head going, drink, drink. Because what happens is you have a drink and your defenses go down, your energetic defenses go down, and these beings start bullying you and telling you to do things. So, I mean, if you don't have those beings, because I treat addiction in a very different way, where I literally get rid of all the traumas that I have and all these beings associated, and then they just don't think about it. That's ultimately where you could, not that anyone has to ever take anything ever again, but it's just not a thing in their consciousness. It's not something they're battling. It's just something they don't think about anymore. It just doesn't exist.
Definitely.
I think that's the ultimate level of it.
Yeah, and I suppose I'm trying to also help people get to that point so that they can have a spectrum of offerings, which is like both alcoholic and alcohol-free within the same setting. So, for example, the all night long also brings an element of harm reduction. So if you're worried about the after effects from alcohol, so like your hangover symptoms, all night long is something that could be utilized by both sober people and people who are taking recreational things, because some of the ingredients act to upregulate phase 2 liver detox, and your liver has 2 phases of detoxing. Phase 1 actually metabolizes alcohol into one of the most inflammatory forms, which brings a whole host of impacts into your body, which then lead to your hangover. So when I'm taking the all night long with my alcohol, I actually wake up the next day feeling really fresh, which is just great because it means that I don't necessarily have to worry so much about my consumption, but I am feeling a lot better the next day. And other aspects that this helps with it is that alcohol is toxic to both the liver and the brain. So the ingredients in all night long are neuroprotective, so it protects the brain and nervous system, and also hepatoprotective, so it protects the liver. So yeah, through this multi-pronged approach, I'm just hoping that I'm making things that are accessible and useful to all people, no matter what their choices are.
It's the middle way, isn't it? It's a nice middle way, which is accessible from both ends without being damaging.
And if we were taught more things around harm reduction at a younger age, then I think that people might not get into that sort of blind fury of consumption that leads towards addictive practices. Of course, that is not speaking towards the trauma that the majority of us have. So yeah. There's no one
No,
thing.
there's a lot. I mean, trauma, the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's human connection, is what they say. So it's, you know, it's a lot to do with trauma. Most addicts are very traumatized people. They have disturbing childhoods largely.
Of course, yeah.
Right, I'm going to have to close in just a moment. Have you got,
Fantastic,
so we're going to have the details for Karmesuticals below. Anything else you'd like to say about anything else?
I suppose if you're interested in learning more, helping out with Karmesuticals, volunteering at any of the festivals, or just want to hang around with some people that are passionate about herbs, health and recreation, don't hesitate for a second to reach out, because we're always here and we're always up for a cool conversation and definitely always up for a helping hand.
Oh, that's wonderful. All right, well, you stay on the line, and thank you everyone for watching. It's been a fascinating interview, and yeah, I look forward to sampling your products. See you later.
Thank you very much.
Bye.